lecture on IFU data and what exactly is IFU and a small application of what IFU is. So I'll just present my screen. Is the presentation visible? Is my presentation visible?
Yeah, your screen is visible.
Okay, yeah, fine, fine. What about now?
Yeah,
So I guess I'll start then, right?
yeah.
Okay, okay. So last week you all dealt with imaging data, and in the second week, I guess the assignment is already posted. So some of you might have already went through the assignment, and you might have seen the name IFU data. So IFU is actually pretty different from the kind of data that we already dealt with, and that is why a separate session is held for this IFU spectroscopy and IFU data. So in this lecture or a session, I'll be dealing with what IFU spectroscopy is and how is IFU different from other traditional or conventional methods of analysis, and even a survey which actually uses this IFU method of gathering information to make the database, which is the so-called Manga survey, a part of the SDSS. So I'll start with the session right away. So what is IFU? IFU stands for Integral Field Unit. So it's basically a collection of optical fiber cables, and this will be used to gather light from a distant astronomical object, which is our area of interest, and the information that is gathered using this IFU is then processed to get spectrum and images of the object of our interest. So, before going directly to the technical part and how IFU is different, I'll introduce Manga IFU survey because we'll be focusing mainly on the data that is obtained from this Manga survey. So we'll be focusing more on the IFU structure used in the Manga IFU survey. So MANGA stands for this Mapping Nearby Galaxies at APO, Apache Point Observatory, and MANGA is basically a part of this SDSS, Sloan Digital Sky Survey. And MANGA is a survey which is hosted, aiming at mapping the properties of about 10,000 nearby galaxies. And this is the survey part of this MANGA survey, and galaxies in this region in the sky is scanned in the Manga survey. So Manga's IFU, which is our area of interest, are actually collections of fibers known as bundles, and each individual fiber yields a spectrum at a different position. You'll understand this once we look at the picture or the structure of the IFU. Okay, so what existed before IFU? Okay, so before IFU, the imaging, the data that is used for analysis was gathered using mainly by long slit spectroscopy. So by the name itself, I think it is clear. Long slit is basically the kind of technique that we all might have used in our UG or higher secondary classes in the spectrometer. So in this long slit spectroscopy method, a long slit as shown in the figure will be used to observe the object of our interest, and the light from this object will then be dispersed by using a prism or a grating, and this and by this spectrum will be generated. So in this process we'll either get the spectrum of the entire object. See, here we are seeing an entire object through the slit, so we'll get the spectrum of the entire object, or maybe some part of it through this long slit spectroscope. And another example is the method of objective prism, where a whole patch, a bigger patch of the sky is scanned, from which we'll get the spectrum of a large number of sources in that patch of the sky. So the picture is shown here. A bigger patch of the sky is scanned, and the spectra of a large number of sources will be obtained. Basically, this is the way with which the Henry Draper catalog was developed. So these are all traditional methods that have been used to gather information. But the problem we see here is that we are getting either a big information about objects in a large patch of the sky, or maybe at least an integrated information of an individual object, either from here or from the objective prism. So how are IFUs different? So what exactly is different with IFU? This is the structure of the IFU. These are the bundles of Manga survey. So Manga survey uses a hexagonal structured bundle, and these small circular things are the optical fiber cables. And these OFCs are arranged in such a way that this whole bundle, a whole hexagonal structure, will be scanning an individual galaxy. So if you look at if the image data of the Manga survey, we'll be seeing the pictures of the galaxy inside this hexagonal envelope. And each of these optical fiber cables will be scanning different regions of an entire galaxy. So in a sense, we can say that we get spatially resolved information, like in the sense that we have the information regarding the entire galaxy itself, but also if we suppose if we want to get information regarding the nucleus of the galaxy or the central region of the galaxy, like the properties of the AGN, like if the AGN is existing there, or what is the activity of the AGN, we can simply focus on the data from one of the OFC here, and yeah, we'll have that information also. That's what make IFUs different. Yes, so this is the picture. See, this is the bundle that I've been talking about, and the galaxy will be scanned as a whole in this bundle. And each of these OFCs scan different regions of the same galaxy. So, say, as I said, if we want the information regarding the central region, we can simply give the designation of this pixel, spatial pixel. That's what this pixel is, and yeah, then we'll get the information, right? The spectrum or any other property of our interest, we can gather that. So this Manga survey performs multiple observations area. Like this OFCs will be plugged into a plate-like structure, aluminum plate, and that plate will be mounted for observation. So maybe more than one observation will be done in each day. So to identify a galaxy without confusion, code names like this plate IFU or Manga ID will be given to each of the galaxies. So in the coming week, you will be dealing with these kind of determinants to identify a specific galaxy of our interest. So this is basically the real IFU. So if probably you might have thought that an IFU is a big structure by seeing this picture, but it's this small. This is human hand, and it's this small. This will be connected to the plate to observe an astronomical object. It's that small. Okay, so if you are focused here, you can see that there are gaps existing within between these optical fiber cables. So actually, that the photons coming through that gap is actually lost, but that information is also valuable. But we have to preserve it, or we have to uh, catch it in some other way, such that we don't lose the information. So what this survey people do is that they uh, do a process called dithering. Nothing but they simply reposition the hexagonal bundle uh, in such a way that the lowest this photons is actually gathered in some other observation. So in a way that we don't lose much information, and we have a better, clear picture. So the result of this observation is called a data cube. So it's actually a three-dimensional object which whose two dimensions are spatial. One will be the right declination, other will be the declination, and the third dimension is wavelength. So this is where you get the information. Suppose we need the information regarding the central region of the galaxy. So if we know this positional information regarding the center, you simply go to that position of the pixel, and you get you get the spectrum. So that's how simple it is. So the difference here is earlier we did not have, earlier we simply had the integrated spectrum of the whole object, but now we have the spectrum of the region of the galaxy annexed. That's what makes it special in my opinion. Okay, so what exactly will we get? So you will get a spectrum of different regions. So what can we do with that? And with this spatially resolved information, we can have the, as already said, spectrum and also the flux at that point. Then you can also create visual images for our analysis, like say any emission line or any, suppose say, stellar velocity. So if we know the quantity of our interest, you can create objects called maps, and a visual analysis can be done with that. So to make this analysis process a bit easier, this Manga survey people has developed a toolkit called Marvin. It's actually a Python package, and this Marvin, you'll be using this Marvin a program and its code to access data and analyze it in the second week. So yes, so after from now, I think we can go to an example like an application of how this IFU data will help us. So before moving to that, I'll introduce some important quantities that might help in the analysis. One is H alpha. H alpha is basically this Balmer alpha line, which is basically the transition, which arises due to the transition of electron from n equal to 3 to n equal to 2 level of the hydrogen atom. H alpha is actually pretty important one in the analysis process because this H alpha line is actually a proxy for identifying whether there are star formation or the presence of massive stars in the region of our interest, because H alpha is actually the ionization energy of hydrogen corresponds to about, in temperature sense, about 30,000 Kelvin. So a radiation that is capable of generating this kind of electron temperature is either due to the presence of massive stars, or it will be generated due to star formation. So presence of H alpha lines, if we are able to detect H alpha line in certain regions of a galaxy, we can say that we can attribute the presence of star formation or either the presence of massive stars in that region. Then emission line classification schemes. So Marvin, from this IFU data, we can get information regarding a large number of emission lines. One is H alpha, then other is O3 is there, N2 is there, then different kinds of lines are there. You'll be using all these lines in the coming assignments. You'll get to know that. So there are classification schemes that exist to classify galaxies. Uh, like again delineate between this star formation and the presence of AGN. Some examples are PPT diagram and one diagram. We'll be dealing with one diagram in detail. And then there is metallicity or relative enrichment. Metallicity is basically a measure of the relative enrichment, like what are the any element heavier than hydrogen or helium is termed as metals in astronomy. So we'll simply look at what is the or to what extent these heavier elements are present in a galaxy. Then break index, basically a proxy for determining the relative age of a galactic medium. Okay, so these are some of the important information that might help you in performing the analysis. So this is the kind of application that I talked about. Mangas, this IFU data of this manga survey gives you ample information to perform many a kind of analysis. So I'll introduce here a class of galaxy called LSB galaxy, which are actually pretty difficult to identify using even a good kind of telescope. But due to that reason, it was uh, till now in a cloud because many of the scientists ignored the presence of LSB galaxies and because they thought that it does not contribute much to the all galaxy population. So, but a study of the LSB galaxies regarding the structure, their morphology, their properties can be done very nicely using the IFU data. So I'll simply just introduce what LSB galaxies are. LSB stands for low surface brightness. I'm not sure if any of you have came across the term surface brightness. It's basically brightness of an object. So for a star, you have the luminosity, which is the intrinsic property, but brightness is something that you perceive at a distance. The luminosity of the star or an object will diminish as it travels. So you can attribute brightness to a star, but it's a point object. But for a galaxy, it is difficult because galaxy is extended; it's mirrored in space. So we cannot actually pinpoint a number to its brightness. So what we do is that we consider some uh, curves of constant photon number called isophotos around the galactic disk, and we integrate the amount of flux coming out of it. It's simply the brightness of a galaxy. So it's better to understand it that way, right? So those galaxies which has a brightness below a threshold, which makes it difficult to identify. To put it like this, these LSBs are species with surface brightness 1 Mach fainter than the ambient night sky. So if you look at the night sky, you have an idea of what night sky looks like. So this galaxies has a magnitude which is fainter than night sky itself. So it's pretty difficult to identify them. And so technically the definition is based on the band. So in the B band, if the disk central surface brightness of a galaxy is greater than this 22.5, On the R band, if it's greater than 21, then we can say that that galaxy is an LSB. So identification was pretty difficult. Yeah, that I think already explained it. They were considered not to contribute much to the galaxy population, but the fact is they do contribute, and we have to learn a bit about them. Then only we can have a better understanding of our kind of galaxies that are in this universe, and hence a better understanding of the universe. And yes, manga IFU services of SDSS is ideal for studying these LSB galaxies. Then yeah, the I'll take an example. So this is the plate IFU of a galaxy. This is how you designate them: 845612701. So this is a LSB galaxy. Here is the optical image. This was actually generated using Marvin, and this you can see the hexagonal structure here. This is the bundle envelope, and we'll get any property we need inside of this hexagonal bundle. So we'll perform here a structural analysis. So to put simply, we can see some arm-like structure here. It's not clear. I think you can appreciate why it's called low surface brightness. It's pretty very dim. Okay, so we see arm-like structure, and this arm structure seems to have blue tint in its outer edges. And to look at the center, it seems like a bit extended with some yellow or white appearance. I think that's what we can decipher from the optical image. And then next is the H alpha map. This was also again generated using Marvin. And yeah, you'll all be generating all kinds of these maps in the coming weeks. This then this one diagram, everything. So regarding H alpha, we can see good amount of emission is there along the arms, and the central region also we can see a great amount of flux. Center is glowing in H alpha, but outer regions doesn't seem to contribute much. So H alpha, as I said, can act as a proxy for the presence of either massive stars, or it can mimic star forming regions. Those are the possibilities. So this blue region also, blue color also can be due to the presence of massive stars or the act of star formation. I think you guys know that, but if you don't, I guess after this you can ask about the how do we came to the conclusion that blue regions corresponds to star formation or massive stars. Okay, next is one diagram. It's pretty important. One stands for width of H alpha versus N2 by H alpha. It's basically a plot between these two variables. H alpha, I have already said, N2 is an emission line. So if we do a plot between these two, then we have a criteria to categorize galaxies. Okay, so emission line ratio trace physical conditions in the ionized gas. So N2 by H alpha is a ratio of emission lines. So emission lines trace physical conditions, and width of H alpha, this stands for equivalent width. It measures the power of ionizing source. And this, so before this one diagram, there existed BPT diagram, which was also a kind of classification scheme. But the its drawback was that the classification scheme failed to delineate between star formation and AGN. So if you look at a galaxy and if you try to classify it, it was difficult to separate the boundary between star formation and AGN category using this BPT diagram. It is in that place where Venn diagram plays a nice role. It actually delineates, it actually completely separates whether a galaxy is star forming or it's AGN. So here is, it shows the one diagram here. So the criterion that we use to perform the classification is this. It's completely based on the information that is available in Marvin. So there are five types of categories here: pure star forming, strong AGN, and weak AGN. These both constitute AGNs. Retired galaxies are actually regions in the galaxy which where emission is mostly by the presence of these evolved stars. Passive galaxies are galaxies that essentially does not have any emission, which does not show any lines, emission lines. So different regions of a galaxy is then classified into classified with different classes like this based on the intensity of emission lines. So here it is pretty diverse. The central part and the a bit, you can see the optical image here. It shows some arm-like structure. So the central region and the armed regions seem to be predominant to be dominated by star formation, and the disk medium is actually strong AGN. And then there is VKG and retired galaxy. It shows all types of characteristics. So it's here also here we can see some blue white tinted appearance, and it shows star formation by one diagram. So it might possibly a star forming region. Yeah, that's one diagram. For our galaxy, the one diagram looks like this. It's completely it's dominated by pure star formation, but I'm not sure if that is completely believable. But for the time being, it's safe to accept that our LSB galaxy is dominated by star forming nature. So those blue tinted regions that we saw in the optical image, and also its alpha fluxes along the arm and all were in fact star forming regions. That's one thing now almost clear about our galaxy. It's star forming. It was star forming. Now there is gas phase metallicity. So metallicity is again a measure of anything that is heavier than hydrogen or helium. Here we look at the gas phase metallicity. That is not in terms of what we normally use for stars, but uh, metallicity in the gas phase. That's essentially it. So it gives a relative enrichment and the stellar activity in the galactic medium because it's stars that produce these heavier elements. So it's stars that perform nuclear fusion in its core, and then it generates all the kinds of heavier elements. And when it bursts out or explodes, all these elements will disperse to the galactic medium. So, so it basically is a measure of the activity in the galactic medium. So this is the equation that again we will be using to calculate the metallicity. Here also we have this N2 by H alpha. So all we are completely using emission lines, information regarding emission lines to arrive at any property of our interest. So emission lines are pretty important. So again, you will also be using this in the coming week. So to look here, um, the central region and the disk here has almost the same measure here. It's about 8.6 or something. It's far below 8.7. So 8.7 is a pretty good number because 8.7 is the metallicity of our sun, and we know we have an idea of the age of sun. It's a G25 class star, and it's middle aged, not that old but not that young kind of star. The medium of this galaxy is actually pretty young than our sun, or it seemed to have developed in an evolutionary stage such that its state is pretty far below that of our sun. So that means that it just the galaxy of our interest has just started its evolutionary process. So the galaxy is forming stars, and it's actually pretty below in the evolutionary stage. I think that's about metallicity. Then there's is break index. So break index actually acts as a proxy for age, and to put quantitatively, 1.5 is the value that we put as a boundary. There is some technical things behind it. I'm not explaining that here. So if the value of the break index appears to fall below 1.5, we can say that that object or a region is less than a billion year old. And if the value is far above 1.5, we can say it's more than a billion year old. So we look here, the central region and other most of the regions here appear to have a break index value which is either equal to or below than 1.5. We can't see a region which is having a value above 1.5. Uh, so it's safe to say that the medium of the galaxy or the galactic medium is pretty young. It's more less than a giga year old. So to put all okay, so this is what the break is. You can see in the 4,000 Armstrong, you can see a break in the spectrum here. So this is what the break is, and this accumulation of spectral lines will help us in determining the age. So this, to put as a whole, our galaxy is a predominant star-forming one with a less enriched medium and pretty young. So I think that's some important information that we will uh, which will help us in creating an idea about a galaxy. So this analysis was possible because we had data from the manga server which used IFU. So my sole purpose here was to make you believe that IFU is pretty important, and I guess it is pretty important. So all of these analysis would not have been possible if we had an integrated spectrum or a total image of the object. It was made possible because we had the spatially resolved information which gave us the line ratios, the other important informations regarding the different regions of the same galaxy or any object of our interest. So to put together, we have discussed today about IFU, what IFU is, and its importance. The Manga survey. This Manga survey uses IFU technology and the kind of data that it gives, like cubes, maps, etc. Then we discussed about LSB galaxy, then the H alpha map, one diagram, metallicity, and break index. So that was the application. And I guess I have made it. I was able to believe, make you believe that IFU is pretty important, and I think you will realize it in the coming week when you do the exercise more clear. And that's it. Thanks. Yeah, I don't know if I was completely monotonous. I'm sorry for that.
Uh,